All right, hi. I am here with the one and only Bob Marselle, who is playing a leading role in the upcoming show, Murder on the Orient Express, here with Stagecrafters at the Baldwin Theater on stage from Friday, February 13th to Sunday, March 1st. He's playing a leading role and is actually master carpenter for the show. We're just going to talk a little bit about it. I want everyone to get a chance to learn more about the show, more about you, so that their curiosity can be appropriately piqued before they come see it.
Sounds good.
So I hear you have a history, not just with Stagecrafters, but with Stagecrafters mysteries in particular. You're a specialist of sorts. What have your past detective roles been?
Well, as far as past roles, there's really a couple. Back in 2013, we did a production of Curtains, and that show is basically about a police detective who comes into a theater to solve a murder, and they lock the place down, and he is actually a closet musical fan and gets more involved in the productive process of putting a musical together in Sidelight to actually figuring out the crime and identifying the murderer and that type of stuff. So I played Lieutenant Chaffee in Curtains. So there was one of the more comedic roles as far as a detective goes. And where this one obviously is a little more serious. Hercule Poirot is very fastidious, very detail-oriented, very analytical, and goes through his day with his mind reeling through all of those details and trying to figure out what happened on the train and what occurred as far as the murder goes.
You have had a longer history with Stagecrafters and with the Baldwin Theater. How did that start and when? What's the origin story?
The origin goes back to 1986. That's the second year that the group has been in the Baldwin Theater. I came here one night with a group of people from work who said, hey, we're going to get tickets to Camelot that's playing down in Royal Oak. And we came down and saw Camelot. They turned the house lights up at intermission, and I took a look at this, 1920s great-looking theater, and basically I haven't ever left. I tell people I like to play on both sides of the stage, so I am, like you said, I'm the master carpenter for this one, and I've built a whole lot of shows in the past 40 years. I've also dabbled in lighting design and master electrician to throw some light on the subjects down on stage. Then have been in various productions, a lot of well-known ones. My wife likes to kid me because there have been certain productions that going way back into the 90s when I was still in my 30s, played the judge in Sweeney Todd. So that one I had to age up. And then I've been in some other productions like South Pacific, Little Women, and things where I was playing one of the romantic leads in the shows, and the women on stage that I was opposite were half my age. So it's been quite of a mix of experiences in coming through here, but it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, this summer is 40 years of being a member here, so it's definitely been my second home and a lot of things that I love to do here.
And this has been, you mentioned your wife, a family affair for you in many ways. I think you've worked here with your wife and your children. What are some of the shows you've worked on together?
Well, we started back in '86. The first show of that second season was Man of La Mancha here. And my wife Sandra and I were both in the show. At that point in time, we were just two of the castmates and had just met and gone through the show. And then the last show of that season was Annie. Sandra was on stage and was playing Grace Farrell in the production of Annie. I was on the lighting crew for that show. So through cast parties and various things there, we started dating, and we became there are a number of Stagecrafter marriages, people that met in the theater and got married. So we've started our family here. Both of our kids were involved in the youth theater productions here from both onstage and technical sides of the theater. Back in 2005, when we did Music Man for the second time here, I played Harold Hill. My wife was in the ladies for the Pick a Little Ladies, and both of my sons were part of the boys band in Music Man. So this is, I think, our either the third or fourth show that my wife and I have both been in together. For a while, we had to take turns with the kids and all of that stuff.
So Stagecrafters has been a family affair for you, but in some ways, Stagecrafters came first and then the family.
That's true. Yeah.
So for one of the shows you did upstairs for Second Stage a few years ago, you were in Frankenstein, an adaptation of that. And I hear there were some stage combat you had to do in there. What was most memorable about that show, one of your kind of past leading roles for you?
That one, Frankenstein, it was an adaptation that was just released the year before that, in 2018, by a guy that lives down in Tennessee. The director followed it, was very big fan of that production going on, so then brought it up here. So when I went through and auditioned and got the part, I played Victor. There is a couple of different places in the show where you've got stage combat, where you've got the confrontation between Victor and the monster that he's created. Being on second stage, when you're on the edge of the stage and you're doing combat and the front row of the audience is about 6 or 7 feet away, when we got past rehearsals and into production and we got to those places, there was one point in our combat where Victor's on his knees and the monster's got him by the throat, and the eyes bulging out and stuff like that. And you can physically hear the audience in the front row go, and they're just waiting to see what happens next. I mean, that takes it kind of a different aspect when the audience is that close and you're getting so involved in the script and the actions. That was definitely one of my favorite productions too, upstairs.
Great. You have mentioned you do a lot of behind the scenes work, master carpenter for this show and lights and lots of things in the past. What are some aspects of that work and leading that work that other people, our listeners, just might not know about since it happens behind the scenes?
I guess, a lot of people might think one of the most fulfilling things is to be on stage and have a role and do that kind of a thing. One of the things that I'm proud of in a lot of the productions that I've put together, whether it's from Frankenstein upstairs, whether it's Murder on the Orient Express down here, I enjoy just being able to take a set design from one of our volunteer designers, kind of mulling it over for a while, turning it into a shopping list to go to the lumberyard, and then actually creating all of the stuff. We have several of our movable pieces that are on air systems, so that's always fun to go through and put all that stuff together. But I guess as I build a show, my wife and I, part of our history here too, we've been season ticket holders for years and years. So then to come on my season ticket night and to watch the pieces that I've helped create go by, or people climbing on them, or whatever the case may be, that's just really fulfilling for me, is to watch that type of an aspect. There's kind of a side note to that too, because if I go to the Fisher or other theaters and see other productions, a lot of time half of my brain is engaged in what's that set piece and how did they create that, and I wonder if we could do those things, or in addition to watching what the performers are actually doing. So
you mentioned an air system. I think that's a term that, again, our listeners might not be totally familiar with. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, a lot of set pieces, if you got rooms or pieces that come in and out, a lot of the older school type thing is basically just large casters that are underneath it. We actually have 4 air systems where there's a compressed air tank. You use one of our compressors and fill the tank with air. We've got casters that as you flip a switch somewhere that's hidden on that set piece, then it raises up 3/4 an inch to an inch, just enough to where it can move silently. Most of the time it goes without a hitch. Sometimes there's problems, especially if one of the set pieces weighs an incredible amount. Then sometimes it's a challenge. But we use those air systems to help. It also gives a little more stability. If you've got actors that are dancing on a set piece, if you got something like that, then once the air system, you bring it in and set it on the stage, it's not like the other casters that are kind of wiggle back and forth. There's less confidence probably in that type of a setup.
So for this show, you are playing the one and only Hercule Poirot. If anyone can see the video here, you've got the mustache. It's real. If you can't see the video, it's right here. And there's a lot for you to do in this show. There's a lot of dialogue. You have to have an accent that you're layering on top of it as well. What are some of the things you do for memorization and rehearsal to kind of lock in for the show?
I start real basic and basically just sit down at home with the script on my lap. I start with, whatever the first page of dialogue is. I go through and read that to myself, do 1 or 2 sentences together, and then work through paragraph by paragraph and just keep adding on, more and more of the content. And then when I get through one particular page, then I'll sit and not look at the script and kind of stare at the wall or the ceiling or something to see if I can visualize what I just went through. And I'll just continue that, going page by page by page. It becomes a lot more natural when you get finally to the production. But as I'm going through rehearsal and trying to figure out, where the cues are, where the lines are, I can somewhat visualize the pages to where I know how big of a chunk I've got coming up, or, if we've got a lot of interaction with different characters as it goes. And then working up, we've got 2 weeks now till we open. So my repetition and sitting in the chair has moved on to pacing back and forth across my family room, and basically starting at the first scene and running the show, mentally filling in however much of the lines that I need to figure out what my next thing is. That's kind of the process that I go through.
Great. So I want to get back to some of your collaborators for the show. In the cast for this show, there's a wide range of experience with Stagecrafters, experience with theater in general. What kind of the extremes of range are you seeing for folks in the show with you?
Yeah, we do have quite a wide range of mix. One of the women that's in the show, I've worked with her as a director before. I've worked with her on stage before. She and her husband have been members of this theater for probably a little bit longer than I've been here. The other extreme is we have a woman in the cast that, once we start the rehearsal process, we're actually not in this building. We're in a rehearsal space. She was excited when we started rehearsing the show because she had never set foot in the Baldwin Theater before. But she auditioned for a show and she's going to be on the stage. And then we do have a gentleman that is playing one of our characters that has never done theater ever. He decided he was going to audition and he got cast in the show. And then there's a lot. I've had stage experience with 2 or 3 of the other members that are in the cast. So they've been in and out in different productions. So yes, we do have a big mix of people.
Okay, so when people come see the show, make sure you look at the playbill and everybody's bios to see who is who in terms of how it's been experienced.
Who's been here and who are the newbies, yeah.
So last thing I wanted to ask about, you have told me that you're really active in Scouting America in the world outside of theater and Stagecrafters. You and your sons are all Eagle Scouts, and you've been a Scoutmaster for a long time. I'd love to hear some highlights of just your experience on that front.
Kind of on the thread of Eagle Scouts. Yeah, you mentioned I'm an Eagle Scout. Both of my sons are Eagle Scouts. Both of my brothers are Eagle Scouts as well. That, for me, is one of the highlights. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 36, 38 Eagle Scouts in the troop that I've been associated with for a number of years. Probably one of my favorite pieces in going through the scouting process is once one of the boys earns Eagle is actually performing that Eagle Scout ceremony. Presenting that is one of the highlights. Other than that, my happy place, and a lot of people that know me from Scouts, my happy place is next to a campfire and a camp chair. And, whether we're, using the fire to keep warm because it's only 20 or 30 degrees outside, or, we're at summer camp and we're just having a good time. So the campfire is definitely a great place. And I've been through, a number of things, our camping trips, and especially the high adventures. I've backpacked on Isle Royale for a number of days. We've been through caves where you crawl through the mud and, that type of stuff. 10, 11 years ago, I was part of a 9-person crew, and we went to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. Our crew, over about 10 and a half days, we covered 65 miles. And that's, you're backpacking in the backcountry, taking everything on your back. So that's one of the things that I really enjoyed. That was a lot of fun.
Well, that really brings us to the end here. Is there anything else top of your mind you'd like to share with the folks on the line?
The only thing I could think of, after I'd been a member here for about a year and watched a lot of the veteran players and people around here, my lifelong goal is to become the old guy in the theater. Right now I'm a 40-year member, and I've always said one of my mantras is I'm not going to be old until the age starts with an 8. So I've still got a number of years left to go, and still enjoying the Baldwin Theater and Stagecrafters.
Well, then we will see you and your work on and off the stage this coming month, and also for many years to come, as it seems to be. Thank you so much, Bob. This has been really illuminating. I hope everyone has enjoyed hearing it as well. And again, please come see Murder on the Orient Express, where you will know that much more about the man behind the mustache. Again, we open Friday, February 13th, and we're running till Sunday, March 1st. Tickets are available on stagecrafters.org. We'll see you there.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.